Okay, hi. Welcome to the Special Needs Plan Eligibility Verification Pre-Monitoring Conference Call. We're going to get started now since it's about 5 afternoon. My name's Katie Suhan. You've received probably more emails from me than you'd like, and I'm just going to introduce the call, go over a couple ground rules, and we can get started. So just a reminder that the audio line will not be announcing names as attendees enter or leave the call, so we're trying to cut back on background noise. And just as an extra precaution, if you can mute your own phones, that will probably help cut down on extra background noise. The call will be recorded. All attendees are going to be muted upon entry, so there might be a split second of noise when someone enters the call, but it's not going to last for very long. Because you're muted on entry, there's not going to be a chance to ask any questions or make any comments. Again, we're trying to cut back on the background noise here. So if you do have any questions, you can send them during the call or throughout the entire extent of this monitoring effort to our email address at snp_support@impactint.com. That email address is on most of the documents that we've sent out, so you will be able to see it there. You've already received some emails from them as well, from that email address as well, so you can just reply through that. So I'm just going to do some introductions of those on the call. We're here at Impact International, and we have our CMS Project Officer, Charles Baffy, on the call as well. We also have from Impact Oswaldo Urdupieta, who's the project manager, and Ing Wong, who is one of the co-task leads. The other co-task lead is Justine Jimenez, and she's going to be walking you through a lot of the parts of the project. We also have Evan Perlman, who will be walking through the website and some other user-specific instructions. Also, we have Strategic Health Solutions on the line, and they've been assisting us with some technical policy issues, and so we're up to speed with all the CMS policy, and I'm going to pass the mic on to Justine, and she can introduce the project for you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Justine Jimenez. I am the SNP co-task lead on this project, along with Ing Wang. You may have already received communications from me through the SNP help desk. And just as a way to start off this meeting, we really appreciate your participation in this monitoring effort, and we really look forward to working with each and every one of your parent organizations over the next month or so. So, without further ado, I want to just provide a little project introduction and background. In 2010, CMS conducted a Medicare Part C and Part D monitoring gap analysis. During this gap analysis, CMS identified SNP eligibility verification as an area in which little or no monitoring reporting existed. As a result, in 2011, CMS contracted with Impact to develop a new monitoring effort to assess Medicare Advantage organizations' ability to confirm the very unique eligibility requirements for beneficiaries enrolled in Medicare C, D, and I SNPs. In March 2012, just a couple months ago, CMS and Impact piloted the SNP eligibility verification monitoring effort with a handful of your peer Medicare Advantage organizations. And now, in May 2012, we are very confident that the SNP eligibility verification monitoring effort that you all have before you now is ready for full-scale implementation. To address one question that's already been submitted to the SNP Help Desk, this monitoring effort, as it's designed now, is designed for one-time implementation. But depending upon the results of this study, CMS may decide to regularly monitor SNP eligibility verification. However, the frequency and mechanism for such continued monitoring of this area is unknown at this time. And I'm sure CMS would communicate such monitoring through HPMS or some other avenue. So again, this is one-time monitoring at this point. So, all parent organizations with special needs plans active in contract years 2011 and 2012 are required to report contract year 2011 SNP eligibility verification information for a select number of SNPs. And you can thank your pilot peer MAOs. They really helped us with the scope of this task, and they really helped us target and reduce our scope. Before, we were considering all SNPs, having parent organizations reply to this monitoring effort for all SNPs, but now, as you see, we have requested just one DSNP per state, one iSNP per iSNP type, and one CSNP per legal entity per PO. So that is the current scope for the SNPs required to participate in this monitoring effort. The exact contract and plan numbers, as you already know, were distributed in the appendix of the website credentials letter that was distributed by the Impact Plan Communications team on May 8th, 2012. And as the name of the letter implies, the website credentials letter also included compliance officer login information to the web-based data reporting tool. So that's a little bit of background. Before we go on to our next agenda item, I want to just pause and give CMS, if Charles Baffey is unmuted and able to provide some words of encouragement or to any of you on the phone or strategic, if they have anything to add to the introduction or background. Okay. All right, so we don't hear from Charlie, but please, everyone should have his contact information. Also, any concerns throughout the course of this monitoring effort, contact Charlie, and just as a next step, just always CC the SNP support email address also when contacting Charlie. That way, we're all aware of communications. Okay, so let's start with the data submission instructions document walkthrough. We will bring that up through WebEx. Okay, let's go on. I can grab that from you, Evan. Okay, everyone should be seeing. Okay, let me move this over. All right, the introduction page. So, first of all, thank you, everybody. I'm sure everyone has read through this document in great detail. We hope by now that this walkthrough would just be reinforcement for everybody. But certainly, if you have any questions, please, again, submit them through the help desk. This introduction section really repeats much of the information that I just explained in the project introduction. But there are just a few items I want to highlight over the phone with you all. Exhibit 1, we've provided this here just for transparency purposes and just for your MAO reference. These are measures that Impact plans to calculate using the information submitted by all MAOs as part of this monitoring effort. Again, these will be Impact calculated measures. And something to highlight here is that CMS, in this final sentence here, CMS will use these measures internally to understand SNP's eligibility verification practices. Results at this point are not scheduled to be released publicly, included in any plan performance, star ratings, anything of that nature. So again, this is a first-time implementation of this monitoring effort, and these measures, as included in Exhibit 1, are Impact calculated and will be used for CMS internal use only. Also, as we go through and digest all the information we do receive from your organizations during this monitoring effort, these measures may be revised or even dropped altogether. So we're not married to any one of these measures, but we wanted to put them up here for everyone's reference. Next, I wanted to highlight this sentence on this page. Hopefully everyone can see I'm on page 2 of the Data Submission Instructions document. The sentence about consolidations. So SNPs active in contract year 2011 that consolidated with another SNP in contract year 2012 or changed PBP numbers may be selected to participate in data reporting. So Please pay close attention to any consolidation or termination situational examples that will be included in an upcoming SNP Frequently Asked Questions document release. There have been some really great situational examples that we've answered through the help desk, and we want to disseminate that information to all organizations for their reference, just in case a SNP that we've selected had another SNP that consolidated with it in 2011 or 2012, or we have a lot of situational examples for everyone to consider. And Evan will actually talk about this frequently asked questions document if this is a new thing you're hearing. It's just our general practice as we go through monitoring efforts, and we did this during the pilot. It's just our general practice that we release frequently asked questions documents through email and post it to our website occasionally, maybe once every week, as questions come in through the help desk. Okay, and then finally I just wanted to highlight this last sentence on page 3 of the data submission instructions document, that customized information for each SNP type, because we are definitely aware of the unique nature of each SNP type, D, I, and C. Customized information is included in appendices A, B, and C. Okay. So, moving right along to Section 2 of this Data Submission Instructions document. The first step in IMPACT's mission to create a SNP eligibility verification monitoring effort was to conduct a very in-depth review of DSNP, ISNP, and CSNP policy and guidance. The results of this policy review is discussed in this Section 2, and it's also summarized in appendices A1, B1, and C1, and Exhibit 2. So that's where all of those are the 4 places, actually 5 places. So we discuss policy in Section 2 of the Data Submission Instructions, also in appendices A1, B1, and C1, and Exhibit 2. We want to make sure that we've pulled from all CMS Medicare Managed Care Manual chapters and Code of Federal Regulation, and have included that in this Data Submission Instructions document for everyone's reference. During our policy review, we were able to identify 3 very distinct areas in which SNPs, depending on their SNP type, must verify eligibility. Initial eligibility verification, continuing eligibility verification, and loss of eligibility. Those acronyms that you have seen used a lot are IEV, CEV, and LE. These are used frequently, and we're sure that you're already familiar with those terms. So, to briefly review, DSNPs. DSNPs must verify both Medicare and Medicaid eligibility prior to enrolling the beneficiary. So that's the IEV, or initial eligibility verification, for DSNPs. Then, after enrollment, the DSNP, according to CMS guidance, must continually verify Medicaid eligibility at least as often as the state Medicaid agency conducts redeterminations. So that's the CEV component for DSNPs. ISNPs, they only have an IEV component. They don't have the continuing eligibility verification component. And they have, depending on their ISNP type, they have to perform level of care assessments and confirm with institutions that beneficiaries are indeed eligible to enroll in their ISNP prior to enrollment. And CSNPs, CSNPs must verify, this is an important caveat, only for CSNPs. CSNPs must verify either prior to enrollment or within 1 month after enrollment that a beneficiary has a qualifying condition in order to enroll in the CSNP. Okay? And that's the IEV requirement for CSNPs. The CEV requirement for CSNPs is after enrollment, they must reconfirm beneficiaries' qualifying condition, so their chronic condition, at least annually. Okay, these are all the IEV and CEV pieces pulled from regulation and summarized here for everyone's reference. Okay, and then importantly, for all three SNP types, they are required to monitor loss of SNP eligibility and provide care throughout a period of deemed continued eligibility. And if the member does not regain eligibility, the individual must be involuntarily disenrolled. And that's the LE component that applies to all three SNP types. And that's explained here on page 5 of the Data Submission Instructions document. An important distinction in Exhibit 2 that we will look at here real quickly that explains, whoops, hold on one second. We're having some document overflow issues here. All right, so 2 pieces of the loss of SNP eligibility arena that we've included in this analysis is A, loss of SNP eligibility, which is summarized here, and then B, the mandate that all non-special needs enrollees be disenrolled prior to January 1, 2012. So we understand that given our analysis time frame of this monitoring effort, we're looking at 2011 activity, and we know that in 2011 it was mandated that all all non-special needs enrollees must be disenrolled prior to the start of contract year 2012. So we are sensitive to that distinction between actual loss of SNP eligibility and simple disenrollment of non-special needs beneficiaries. So we've distinguished these 2 arenas, and we hope that that's also clear when reporting your LE variables, or loss of eligibility variables, in your analytic files. We've included some important flags for these disproportionate share beneficiaries. Okay, so that's our policy overview. Now, just quickly to get into the actual mechanics of what we are requesting to be submitted. Section 3 is very self-explanatory. We wanted it to be very simple. We have 2 phases of this monitoring effort, and under the first phase, we are requesting 3 pieces of information. And under the second phase, we're requesting supporting documentation, which can be several pieces of evidentiary documents. So for each SNP, we're looking for a beneficiary level analytic file, accompanied by an analytic file contents file that explains the information in that analytic file. Then, depending on how each organization maintains their standard operating procedures and training materials, you may submit them for a particular SNP or particular SNP type, or just your standard operating procedures for enrolling any beneficiary for your entire parent organization. And that's sort of our other significant piece of phase 1 is submitting those documents to us so that we can get a better idea of, at the end of the day, after this whole monitoring effort is over, making very concrete recommendations to CMS on perhaps how to update policy and guidance, or maybe some additional standalone documents that should be distributed to all parent organizations so that they can possibly improve in this SNP eligibility verification area. Okay? So those are the components of phase 1. The component of phase 2 is just supporting documentation. Please refer to appendices A4, B4, and C4 for the specifications by SNP type of what is an acceptable supporting document. The pilot test was very useful for this phase 2, and we do have a lot of notes in those appendices. That explain that we do not want to overburden plans, and we are not looking for extraneous documents to be submitted for the supporting documentation review. So please pay attention to those acceptable forms of documentation, and if you have any questions before uploading, and there's time, and if time allows, please reach out to the SNP Help Desk. for clarification. Okay, so very quickly to go over Section 4 of this document, we bolded, for everyone's convenience, important caveats for processing the information required to be included in the analytic file submission. Okay, let's see. Everyone by now should be very familiar with the beneficiary cohort. All beneficiaries enrolled as of January 1st, 2011 are required to be reported in the analytic file. Each beneficiary represents observation in the analytic file. So to answer two separate questions that have been submitted to the SNP Help Desk so far, yes, if you have 5,000 beneficiaries enrolled as of January 1st, we expect an analytic file with 5,000 observations. If you have 28,000 beneficiaries enrolled, we expect an analytic file with 28,000 observations. However, very important to note, and what Section 4 of this document really helps for everyone to understand, is that depending upon the unique circumstances of each of those beneficiaries in your cohort, not every single field in the analytic file is required. So let's say, for instance, I have a disproportionate share, or a beneficiary who's non-special needs. Well, you know, pay attention to the specifications in appendices A2, B2, and C2, and note that if it's a disproportionate share of beneficiary, we of course don't require IEV and CEV fields. So leaving items blank is completely appropriate where noted. And our programs are very sensitive to blank information. We completely expect and anticipate blank information depending upon the unique circumstances of the beneficiaries. So that's why you'll see the flags in the general information fields. You'll see legacy member flags. You'll see non-special needs member flags. Those are important because that tells us whether certain fields will be blank for IEV and CEV. Okay. Let's see what else. The analysis time frame. Again, everyone should be familiar with this, but we are looking for initial eligibility verification data for beneficiaries in the cohort with an effective date of enrollment on or after January 1, 2010. So they're in the cohort and they were enrolled on or after January 1, 2010. Apologize for that. Okay? And then just here, this last sentence, for beneficiaries that enrolled by electing to switch plans within the same parent organization, also known as legacy members, initial eligibility verification is not required. Okay? Wow, sorry, we're having some documents jumping around on me a bit. Apologize for that. Okay. DSNPs must submit CEV data for the first 4 months of contract year 2011. And just to answer one question that's also been submitted to the help desk, if your state perhaps doesn't conduct Medicaid eligibility redeterminations, but annually, so not monthly, not every 2 months, not quarterly, but annually, we would expect, that information, so annually, to be reported as the frequency in which Medicaid conducts redeterminations. You insert that in the text field annually, and then include the rest of the CEV information, appropriately. So maybe you wouldn't have conducted CEV for DSNPs in those first 4 months because your state only conducts redeterminations annually and not in the first 4 months of 2011. So blank values in that case would be totally anticipated and expected and appropriate. Okay, CSNPs must submit CEV data, so still talking about CEV, but now for CSNPs, we're looking for the observation in which that CEV was conducted during 2011. Okay. And then for loss of eligibility, we're only interested in the most recent instance of loss of special needs status, so in 2011. So if your beneficiary lost it in January but regained it, and then lost it again in March and didn't regain it, we'd only be interested in looking at that March episode of eligibility loss. Okay, and then involuntary disenrollment, we're only looking between January and November. Again, trying to be sensitive to the amount of information we're collecting. We're not going into December 2011 for the loss of eligibility variables. Okay. Moving right along. Section 4.3, analytic file specifications. Again, these are all in appendices A2, B2, and C2. And we'll be showing you the reporting templates for these specifications momentarily. Just a very quick reminder about pseudo IDs. We're looking for pseudo IDs for each beneficiary that's unique at the parent organization level. So if you have 7 DSNPs that you're replying to this monitoring effort for, make sure that for all of those 7 DSNPs, no pseudo ID repeats for a particular beneficiary. And what we discovered through the pilot test was that member ID, if it is unique for the entire parent organization, member ID is a completely appropriate pseudo ID. Okay. And just to, oops, I'm sorry, this document keeps skipping on me. Okay, and we're looking for the analytic files to be submitted in Excel format. I just wanted to highlight that very quickly. Analytic file contents specifications, appendices A3, B3, and C3 are your reference points for analytic file content specifications. Please pay attention to the definitions that are at the end of each of those appendices. That'll help everyone understand how to report missing values. Because, again, we do thoroughly expect missing values in your analytic files, and the definitions at the end of the analytic file content specifications appendices explain how to report those to us. And, again, we'll be showing the analytic file contents template momentarily, so we will move on. Section 4.5 is all about reporting, the fun stuff where you get to use the website, and Evan is going to walk through that with everybody momentarily, so we can skip through that. And just this very quick request that everyone please follow the file naming specifications. They are very important for us staying on time and being able to produce the Phase 2 pseudo IDs. So in order for us to select the Phase 2 pseudo IDs, we need to be able to read in and select that random statistically significant sample within 2 weeks of the Phase 1 submission deadline. So we really are relying on everyone to follow these file naming conventions, zipping the files as appropriate, naming them, and also the supporting documentation naming conventions also. Okay, very quickly, Phase 2, data submission, going to Section 5.1. Like I just mentioned, we're going to select a random sample of beneficiaries distributed proportionately based on the January 2011 enrollment for each SNP type. And we've had a lot of questions about this footnote. This footnote at the bottom of, on mine it's page 12, on the screen it's page 13, but page 12, footnote 2, that we do not expect to select more than 90 beneficiaries per parent organization for Phase 2. And then for each of those beneficiaries, they're going to have a unique combination of IEV, CEV, and LE documents that will be required to be submitted. And again, this important caveat is bolded that we're only looking for documents that substantiate the information in the analytic file to be submitted for the supporting documentation phase. Okay? And these appendices are very important for everyone's reference on what is an acceptable form of supporting documentation. And on our end here at Impact, we're going to be conducting reviews that's going to look over these three areas: appropriateness, completeness, and timeliness, once we receive those supporting documents. Okay, and to wrap up here, again, Phase 2 data is going to be submitted through the website. 10 business days or 2 formal weeks after the close of the Phase 1, you will be receiving a supporting document notification letter that your pseudo IDs have been posted to the website, and you can go in and begin to upload your supporting documents for those files. And we do request that you follow this file naming convention for supporting document uploads also. Okay, so I'm not going to, I'm not going to go into the appendices. I trust that everyone has reviewed those thoroughly. So right now what we're going to do is just very quickly walk through one example. We're just going to do a DSNP example of the reporting templates. So here's the DSNP analytic reporting template. So this template corresponds to Appendix A2 in your data submission instructions. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking for these exact variable names in this exact order to be submitted in an Excel format for the beneficiaries in your cohort for each SNP selected to participate in this monitoring effort. Okay, this, as I said, corresponds for these SNPs corresponds to Appendix A2, and between these two files, everyone should have enough information to submit according to the appropriate formats and specifications. And this README file is, again, just reiterating a lot of the information that's already in Appendix A2 and includes some allowable value information and some formatting information. Okay? So that's for DSNP. So as a second piece to this DSNP submission would be the contents submission. We would expect MCOs to just fill in the gray areas of this document and submit to us, also in Excel format. We've divided the DSNP variables into 3 categories: descriptive variables, categorical variables, and continuous variables. And again, please refer to those definitions at the end of Appendix A3 for information on how to report number of observations, number of missing observations, and maximum and minimum values for date variables. So this analytic file contents reporting template, this refers to Appendix A3. And between those 2 pieces of information, you should be able to submit analytic file contents. Okay? I'm not going to walk through. There's some very identical files, very similar, not identical, files for the iSNPs and the CSNPs. And all of those templates have been distributed to MCOs and are also posted for download on the data reporting website in several locations. So everyone should be able to access those without any problems. Okay. So that's it for me for now. I may come back on and talk about some questions that have been submitted through the help desk. But for now, I will pass it over to my colleague, Evan Perlman, to walk everyone through the data reporting tool.
Thank you, Justine. I will just do a brief walkthrough of the data reporting website. You will have received in the website credentials letter a link to this site as well as a username and a password. These were sent to the Medicare compliance officers, the MCOs at each plan. We do prefer to use the MCO as our primary contact. There are cases where if we have some notification or update pertaining to the website, we can send that to all of the registered users of the website. but by and large, any official communications, the letters, meeting notifications, will go to the MCOs. So I would ask if the MCOs can please remember to pass that information along to the people on their team that are working on the SNP task. So when you follow the link from that letter and you come to this website, this is the front page. You'll notice along the left side is a section for news and a section for project information. The news section will have anything that pertains to the site as a whole. If there, for example, we've postponed a non-related data collection, there's a notification that the SNP data reporting period is open. If we have to do any maintenance on the site and it has to go down for any period of time, that'll appear in the news bar as well. And once you've logged in and gotten started on the SNP data collection, you'll see project information, which has the templates and guides. If you need help with logging in, if you need help with adding users within your organization or changing their information, please do click and download this Login and User Management Guide. You did receive one of those, I believe, in the mailings as well, but if you need another copy, they are all available on the website. So we'll log in here. And if you do forget your password, you can click the Forget Password link. At that point, you can enter either your username or your email address if you don't remember your username, and your information will be sent to you. When you first log in, you'll see what's called the menu page, which will display any active monitoring projects that your organization is involved with. Currently, the only active one is the SNP. If there are others, they'll be considered. They are separate monitoring efforts, and you'll receive notifications of those later on. We're not doing anything except the SNP at this time. And again, if your organization is selected, you'll receive notification later on. So you would click on the relevant project, which in this case is the SNP, and come to the introduction page. This gives you much as the letters described and much as Justine has already described, the purpose of the project and sort of a general overview. From this page, you can find all of the data submission instructions, which is the document that we just walked through, the Login and User Management Guide, a user's guide for the data submission activities for SNP, which is a more detailed version of the walkthrough that we're doing now, and other copies of the analytic file and reporting and contents templates. Once you've logged in, if you want to add more users to the website to represent your organization, you would click on User Management. Here you can go to Create User, where you will select your organization. There's usually only the one unless you're somehow associated with more than one PO. Create a username, password, verify the password, enter the person's first and last name and their email address and their user type. Of the two user types, the CO stands for Contract Compliance Officer User, is the sort of higher in the hierarchy, so the CO users can add or delete other users and can edit their information. The contract user does not have that capability. Which type you use is really up to you. There isn't really any greater significance than that, so it's whatever's most convenient for you. When you create a new account for someone, they'll receive an email that an account has been created, but it will not give them their password or username in the email. So that person will then have to contact you. MCOs, this is especially relevant for you, because when you create people, you should remember also please to send them their login information. Going back to the menu and selecting the SNP project again, we can then walk through the data reporting itself. There are two tabs to the data reporting, each reflecting one phase. So the Analytic Files and SOPs tab reflects phase 1. Here you can review the information that's been provided. You can download fresh copies of the reporting templates and the instructions. You can, for efficiency and aesthetics, you can hide sections so that you can only look at the pieces that you're working with at any given time. When you're ready to upload, please note we really do stress this numerous times. Having the correct file name is critical. Having the correct layout in the file is critical. I know sometimes people like to produce their own version of the file because that's how their internal data processes work. If you do that, it really does need to match the template files exactly in terms of the names of the variables and their ordering. So we do ask you to click this attestation before you're able to upload anything. Clicking that will enable you to browse your computer and upload the file. If you've clicked browse and you've selected a file but you change your mind and don't want to upload it, you can click reset, which will clear this field. Otherwise, if you're satisfied, you can click upload. If later on you decide that you perhaps made a mistake or you misinterpreted something or you need to upload a new version of that file, you cannot delete the file that is in there, but you can upload an additional version. If you do so, please let us know. It would be helpful for you to notify us that a new version has been uploaded so that we use the correct file when we're creating the samples. And again, similar procedure for the SOP documents. We do ask you to check that attestation as well. If you have any questions about file preparation, about file naming, about any technical issues with the sites, we remind you please to reach out to us at snipsupport@impactint.com. And that's the first phase tab. For the supporting documentation, phase 2, right now, if you were to go to this tab, it would give you a message saying that phase 2 has not begun. But once we get to that point in the timeline, this is what it will look like. There'll be, again, some additional instructional information for you, and a list at the bottom of the pseudo IDs that have been sampled for each SNP type that is relevant for your parent organization. The maximum number of pseudo IDs that you would have total for your parent organization is roughly in the neighborhood of 90 across all SNP types. That's not to say that every PO will have 90. Some could have fewer, and there's not necessarily an even distribution. For some POs, there may be fewer. But you'll see them all listed beneath the relevant SNP types. To begin providing the supporting documentation, each pseudo ID is a link, and if you click on it, it opens up the fields for the supporting documentation. We've set it up so that you can decide, or you can click next to the document type that's relevant. So if you don't have an initial eligibility verification, you would leave this unchecked. If you do for that particular pseudo ID, you would check the box, and then, as before, you would browse and upload. With phase 2 data submission, you can, if you decide that you want to change the document that you've uploaded, if you have uploaded something and then you uncheck the box, it will give you the option of deleting that file. You can then upload a second file. Once you have uploaded all of the information for a pseudo ID, you'd want to click on the Save button, which will hold your place there and maintain those documents. When you have submitted the documentation for all of the pseudo IDs in a given SNP type, you'll want to click Submit. This, again, almost like an attestation, it will ask you to be very, very sure that you've followed all the instructions, submitted everything according to the layout requirements. Once you click Submit, you will not be able to make any changes to the documents that have been submitted. So do be careful, do take your time, and only submit for each SNP type when you are ready and you're sure that the documents are correct. And again, each SNP type does have its own Submit button. Finally, if you want to review the progress that your organization is making, you can call it the progress report, which will show you for phase 1 whether the analytic file contents have been uploaded, whether the SOPs have been uploaded, and whether, and then for phase 2, whether anything has been submitted and finalized for each SNP type. And you can see greater detail for each SNP type by clicking on Show Details, which will then show you for each pseudo ID whether a document has been submitted. That is all of the functionality of the website that you will need. Again, any issues, any problems, any confusion, we're always available to you. Please do reach out through the SNP support email box. The next thing I would like to discuss briefly is that technical support option. We use a system called Zendesk to handle our help desk functionality. For those of you who are emailing in, you won't necessarily notice much of the behind-the-scenes work, but it does create a ticket for you, like many help desk ticketing systems. If you like, you can interact with us solely through the email. Just respond to the Zendesk communications. Alternately, and I'll bring up the link again on the agenda, you can go to the snipsupport.zendesk.com website and you can look at your account there, which will show all of your active tickets and allow you to manage them and interact with them. That's entirely up to you. Both options work. If you don't wish to, you never need to set foot on the Zendesk website at all. And I'll just review briefly the data reporting timeline. We did open the window for Phase 1 on May 7th, and we have extended Phase 1 through June 11th, which makes a total of 25 business days. Again, that's Phase 1 for the analytic files, the contents files, and any SOPs and similar materials. The window for Phase 2 will open after that period where we're creating the samples, will open on June 25th, and will end on July 9th, which will give you 10 business days to submit your supporting documentation. And with that, I will turn it back to Justine just to cover a few other questions that we've received at the help desk.
Absolutely. Thank you, Evan.
Pleasure.
So, just a few other questions to circle back around with everyone. There was a question submitted about the cohort definition. And the question was, are we correct that the universe includes only those members that were enrolled on or before January 1, 2011? For those members who were enrolled prior to January 1, 2011, they would only be included in the universe in the event they remained an active member on January 1, 2011. Yes. So we're looking for everyone who was enrolled on January 1, 2011, or who was enrolled prior to January 1, 2011, but remained active on, were still enrolled as of January 1, 2011. So, yes. Also, with respect to the cohort, we have a handful of plans that this may be the case for. They are new, so their contract was effective as of January 1, 2011, but they didn't have any enrollments into their plan until, let's say, April 2011. So technically, they don't have any beneficiaries in their cohort. Nobody was enrolled as of 1/1/2011. So in that case, that particular SNP would be exempt from reporting for this monitoring effort. So if that is the case for anybody on the line who has a very new SNP or a new contract, a new SNP with zero enrollment as of 1/1/2011, but yet they were selected to participate in this monitoring effort, please just send us a quick email and we will confirm that your particular plan did have zero enrollment, and we will grant exemption for that particular plan's reporting. The next question, should we submit one consolidated universe for all three contracts under our parent organization? No. We are requesting that individual files be submitted for each SNP in your organization. So if you have 7 DSNPs, we want 7 different Excel files and 7 different analytic file contents files. They can all be zipped together, zipped up and submitted on the website together as 14 files in one zip file, but we really are looking for those 7 files to be submitted separately. So SNP beneficiary level of reporting and one file for each SNP. Okay. Next question is question 4. Where'd my question 4 go? Here it is. Apologize for that. Okay, so this requires looking at the DSNP reporting template. So let me go here very quickly. DSNP analytic reporting template. Okay. Actually, you know what? I think the best place to go is the submission instructions. Okay, right here, D6. Okay. For frequency of Medicaid redeterminations, so we're looking at CEV. So frequency of Medicaid redeterminations for beneficiary state. What frequency are we looking at? Are we looking at the Medicaid agency frequency or what? So what we're looking for here, the frequency in which your state Medicaid agency conducts redeterminations. In the example I gave during the walkthrough, let's say your state only conducts redeterminations annually. So your response in this character field would be once every year. Okay. Here, there could be other responses once a month, once every 2 months, but that's the frequency in which the state Medicaid agency conducts redeterminations. Now, this has been these variable names have been a little confusing. So also, number of times eligibility was successfully re-verified between January and April. So this is the number of times that your company has reached out to the state Medicaid agency and eligibility was successfully re-verified. Whether it was positive or negative, it's just the fact whether they were still eligible or not still eligible. That's irrelevant here, but it's just if they conduct redeterminations every month and you reached out 4 times and you got a response 4 times, your answer here would be 4. Okay? If there's only annual redeterminations going on for your state, then you'd leave this blank because this just doesn't apply. There weren't any between January and April. It wasn't that you reached out to them several times and you were just unsuccessful. It's just that this doesn't apply and you'd leave this blank. Okay? Okay. Dates, eligibility, so if there was 4 here, we just want 4 variable field names, separate variables with those 4 dates to tell us exactly the dates in which those re-verifications were conducted. Okay, now this is sort of the number of times that the organization reached out, but they weren't able to re-verify eligibility. So let's say you attempted to reach out because you know your state conducts redeterminations monthly. You reached out 4 times during this time frame, and you weren't able to get a response. So you'd put a 4 here. So whether it was they're still eligible or not still eligible, whatever that response was, you'd record that here, the number of unsuccessful attempts to gain information from your state Medicaid agency. Okay, I think that's it. I think I just have one CSNP file clarification, so let me go to Appendix C2. Oops. Sorry, bear with me here. All right. The 12th field, IEV means initial eligibility means of verification. So, in the event for initial eligibility, this goes for all SNP types. In the event initial eligibility verification was not successfully verified, then we fully expect the remaining appropriate variables to be left blank because they're not applicable. So obviously, if IEV was not successfully verified, then you're not going to be able to report the means of that verification because it wasn't verified. You're not going to be able to report the date of that verification because it wasn't verified. So the subsequent fields would be left blank in that situation. Okay? And then finally, we received a question just maybe while we were on the phone. If a beneficiary loses SNP status in March, they regain it in June. So we're talking about loss of eligibility here. So they lose SNP status in March. They regain it in June. However, in August, they either pass away or they move outside of the service area. So they have an involuntary disenrollment after they regain their SNP status. In that case, You're going to want to report that March time when the loss of SNP status became available to the SNP. Then you're going to report the beneficiary was requalified. Yes, they requalified during the period of deemed continuing eligibility. Then you're going to leave these variables blank. This one says date and voluntary disenrollment, written notice sent to Benny, voluntary disenrollment flag, leave that blank, leave this blank. But you're going to report then these two fields here, and here you're going to report that August date in which the beneficiary was involuntarily disenrolled due to death or moved outside of the service area. So I know this is a lot of detailed information, and all of these questions are going to be released in an FAQ document for everyone's reference so that they can review outside of this meeting. But we wanted to answer as many questions as possible while we're all on the phone together. I think Evan has another question he wanted to queue up. Yep.
Yes. We've had a couple of questions about the PVP, the Parent Organization ID, the PO ID. That is an internal number that CMS assigns to you. You shouldn't be surprised if you may not have seen it before, but we did include those on the website credentials letter in the appendix to the letter, so all of the MCOs should have that. If you've lost it or if you can't find it or are unable to access it, please send an email to the SNP support email address, and we'll be able to resend you your PO ID. We also had a request to just reconfirm the time frame, the data submission time frames. Sorry. And I'll put them back up on the screen. The window for Phase 1 started last week, but probably for you all the most important date is that it ends June 11th. It was extended from the dates that were listed in the letter, so you can disregard the dates in the letter. June 11th, 2012 is the date to know now. And then Phase 2, again, June 25th through July 9th. And I'll wrap up briefly. Again, we've talked about the FAQs. We do collect questions as they come in, and anything that is not specific to one particular plan, we remove plan-specific language and generalize it, and we'll post those to the website. You'll be notified either probably by a notice from us through the website that it's available and you can take a look at it. And we do update those roughly weekly depending on the volume of calls. Tickets.
Don't call us. No.
Sorry, I'm reliving a previous life in a call center. And that's all that I have. I'm for my part, very happy to be working with you all and looking forward to answering any questions that are there.
Wonderful. All right.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this call. Just one more time, if you have any questions throughout this effort, you can email to snp_support@impactint.com. It's on the website. It's in your letters. And, again, just another request that MCOs share this information with your staff that's helping you out with this monitoring effort, and you can use that information. You can add them as users on the website so they can upload the data, but most of our mass emails are going to the MCO contact information, so if you do not receive it, check with your MCO, and he or she should be able to supply you with that information. So let us know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for working with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.